Have you ever stopped to think about what lies behind Jason Statham's cold eyes? That penetrating gaze, the restrained expressions, the always firm posture, seem to scream a story no one dares to tell. But what if I told you that behind the action star we know, there is a surprisingly silent and dark past? A world that goes far beyond the explosions, the perfectly choreographed punches, and the high-speed chases. Jason Statham wasn't born a star. Much less was he molded by Hollywood from the cradle. Unlike so many cinema icons who came from golden cradles or found fame early, Jason walked through the dark alleys of life, faced rejection, tasted failure, and experienced the bitter flavor of doubt. But no one talks about that. Everyone sees the star, but few know the man. Imagine waking up every day with the feeling that the world offers you nothing, that you need to build everything with your own hands. That was Jason's reality. Born in 1967 in Shirebrook, a working-class town in England, he grew up surrounded by cold concrete and the harshness of a world that does not forgive the weak. His father was a street vendor, his mother a dancer. A simple family but with firm values. That's where the man who would one day face the world with an open chest and closed fists began to emerge. Jason's childhood was marked by the struggle for space. Not fame, but the space to exist. He wasn't the tallest nor the most handsome, and certainly not the most popular. But inside him grew something that no one could extinguish. Resilience. Still young, he found in competitive diving an escape valve. And there, underwater, he found the silence that calmed the inner chaos. Diving became more than a sport. It was his temple. Jason dedicated himself obsessively, training every day as if his life depended on it. And maybe it did. For 12 years, he represented Great Britain as a diver, participating in international championships. But even there, success seemed to slip through his fingers. He never won Olympic medals, never had the shine that other athletes had, and that's the point where many would give up. But Jason didn't. Failure shaped him. The feeling of being on the margins made him stronger, and it was that very failure that pushed him toward an unexpected destiny. Can you imagine Jason Statham as a sportswear model? That's how he began his foray into the world of image. But there was one important detail. He hated the superficial universe of fashion. He felt like a fish out of water, uncomfortable under the spotlights that judged appearances. Nevertheless, he had to pay the bills, and life, as always, offered no truce. It was during this foggy phase that fate made its first turn. While working as a model and doing street vending gigs, selling counterfeit perfumes and jewelry on the sidewalks, Jason was discovered by Guy Ritchie, the British director who would change his life. Ritchie needed someone authentic, someone who could represent the rawness of real life. And Jason was that. He didn't need to play a thug. He had lived among them. He understood the underworld, not as a spectator, but as someone who breathed the same air as his characters. His first film role was in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels in 1998. A bold movie full of style and frenetic rhythm. Jason didn't just fit in, he stood out. He was raw, intense, real, and Hollywood began to take notice. Soon after came Snatch, another cult success that solidified his image as a tough guy. But there was more behind that character. A silent pain, a truth hidden between each dry line and each restrained expression. Statham was never a classical actor. He didn't study Shakespeare. He didn't attend renowned acting schools. But what he brings to the screen is something few actors can deliver: authenticity. He doesn't act, he lives it. Every punch, every glance, every movement carries the weight of a life forged in harshness. When he arrived in Hollywood, many underestimated him. They said he was just another tough face, that his fighting skills wouldn't take him far. But Jason responded the only way he knew how: with work. And more than that, with brutal discipline. Behind the scenes, he was the first to arrive and the last to leave. He trained obsessively, he learned fight choreography with surgical precision, and more, he performed his own stunts, something very few actors still do with such commitment. Behind the cameras, Jason is reserved, almost introspective. He avoids scandals, doesn't get involved in controversies, doesn't show off on social media. He lives a quiet life alongside model Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, with whom he has a son. And perhaps it is this simplicity that surprises the most, because behind the action icon, there is a common man, a father, a husband, a Brit who still feels the weight of the past on his shoulders. While the world screamed for fame and attention, Jason chose silence, focus, discipline. And that's where true strength lies. Jason Statham's image in cinema is synonymous with calculated brutality. But what makes him so different from other action stars? The secret lies in his obsession with discipline. Jason doesn't trust chance. He submits himself to an almost military-level regimen. For each role, he plunges into months of intense physical training, technical learning, and mental preparation. He's not just an actor. He becomes a precise machine. It's common for stuntmen to be used in dangerous scenes, but Jason rejects that. In films like The Transporter, Crank, and The Expendables, he faced real-life risky situations, deep water dives, hand-to-hand combat without doubles, high-speed stunts, all to ensure the truth was there, raw, in front of the viewers. That's not just courage, it's respect for the craft, and that respect extends off-set. Jason is known for his unshakable work ethic. He doesn't drink excessively. He doesn't attend wild parties. He maintains a strict diet and daily workouts that involve martial arts, swimming, climbing, boxing, and weight training. But the most impressive thing is that none of this is vanity. It's preparation, it's dedication. He has already stated in interviews that he doesn't consider himself talented. What he has, according to his own words, is will. A fierce desire to overcome his own limits, a deep urge not to be mediocre. Jason knows the world is cruel to those who stop halfway, and so he moves forward like a tank, heavy, steady, and unstoppable. But there is a lesser-known detail that reveals Jason's most human side. He is afraid. Yes, he feels fear. Fear of failing, fear of disappointing, fear of becoming nobody again. And that fear, instead of paralyzing him, fuels him. It serves as fuel. He channels his insecurities into his characters. That's why there's always a touch of silent desperation in the looks he throws on screen, because he knows fear as an old friend. It's impossible to ignore the impact Jason had on pop culture. He redefined what it means to be an action hero. Instead of the unattainable superhuman, he brought the human fighter. The one who gets beaten, bleeds but gets back up. Who feels pain but keeps going. And maybe that's exactly why he became so beloved. He is the reflection of the common man who, even crushed by the world, still finds strength to fight. But not everything is strength. Not everything is discipline. Behind the tireless warrior exists a man carrying trauma. And one of them is little known. Jason lost a friend during the filming of The Expendables, a tragic accident involving a stunt team that marked him deeply. Though he rarely speaks about it, those who know him say that since then his gaze changed. It became even more closed, more alert, darker. That event, according to close sources, made him reconsider his role in cinema. He began to see action, films not just as entertainment, but as a field of responsibility. Every scene, every risk began to be analyzed more carefully, because he understood that behind the adrenaline, there are real lives, people with families, with stories, and that awareness made him even more meticulous. At that point in life, Jason stepped back from the industry a little. For a few years, he slowed down, spent more time with his family, especially after the birth of his son. In rare interviews, he talks about how fatherhood changed his worldview. The figure of the invincible tough guy gave way to a man who gets emotional watching his son sleep, who fears the future, who worries about the kind of legacy he'll leave behind. Behind the scenes, colleagues say Jason became more spiritual, not in a religious sense, but in seeking inner balance. He practices meditation, goes on solitary walks, and he writes. Yes, he writes. In old notebooks, he records thoughts, movie ideas, and reflections on life. And now, the question that must be asked, what is Jason Statham's true legacy? Is it his brutally physical filmography? His iconic characters who don't hesitate to deliver justice with their own hands? Or is it something even greater, something that goes beyond the screen? Jason's true legacy isn't just in cinema, it lies in the silent message he transmits through his life. You don't need to be perfect to be great.